published author and an aspiring entrepreneur. It is my pleasure to introduce Lanre Onigbinde-Bey.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. How you guys doing? Thank you for having me here. Where's Sonia? Oh, thank you. Thank you for making it possible. I got a little clicker here. Okay. Yay for the clicker. The first time using a clicker. I just wanted to touch on what you said early on about how government shapes what happens with the system, within the correctional system. I think we need to remember before what we know as government now, it was the people that made the choices. So I think we've gotten to a point where we give too much power to the government, quote unquote government, and forget that we as a collective have the power to make a difference. Just like the ocean, there's a drop in the ocean. Together, they make a big wave. So I think we need to remember that we always have the power. If we don't like something, get it, change. It's that simple, But I know there's bureaucracy. So to start, my name is Lanre Onigbinde-Bey, and thank you, Alan, for that wonderful introduction. I got involved with a program that teaches you how to get a job with a criminal record. And I mentioned to Alan that I published a book, and he in turn told Shanice. And overnight, they got me involved with this. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, guys. Excuse me. To begin my story, there's a series of misfortune brought me to the point where I got to publish this book, independently published this book, 27th Letters. Which way? Oh, there you go. Yeah. So there I was. Excuse the pictures. I'm going to use pictures to tell my story. They say pictures say 1,000 words, but I'm going to use pictures to tell my story so you could kind of take a walk with me. Hopefully they're in order. It took me a couple of days to make sure they're in order. A friend of mine sent me this. He works for Sportsnet now. His name is Michael Cormack. You can see him in the background. This was in grade school, grade 6. But myself and my mother migrated here when I was 10 years old. But my father was already living up here in quote unquote Canada, Toronto. So we reunited with him. So for the first 10 years of my life, it was just me and my mother in a place called Nigeria. And after we migrated here, the transition was difficult. And up until that point, it just, like I said, it was me and my mother. Now, I was living with my father. And I seen him a couple of times when he came to visit in Nigeria, but we never really connected because I was so young. So now here I was 10 years old, and making that transition was difficult. I think for my father, I don't know what it is. I'll touch on it later on. But we had a hard time connecting, and he would physically abuse me. I was 10 years old, like I said, really small. Like, I'm a small person to begin with, and you can imagine how small I was when I was that age. So, and before we migrated here, I was ill, so I had lost a lot of weight, so I was really skinny. So, I endured the physical abuse for a couple of years, and my elementary school years were okay, but one day I was getting beaten to the point that neighbors called the cops, and I was actually taken into children's aid care for like 3 months. So, just going through that transition was really tough. So school provided a nice escape for me. So, I enjoyed going to school, plus I was into sports. I was pretty fast back then, so I was into track and field, you know. So moving on to high school. High school, high school started with a few misadventures. You know, with the problems at home, I seek allegiance outside of the home. You know, a lot of I hear you guys talk about programs, and I've seen programs being given out and, that they're taken in prison. And I think a lot of programs, as I go on, that we need to really concentrate on is getting people connected back to their family, or just having this family mentality. Instead of looking at each individual as just, oh, that's that person or that family's problem. It's our problem, you know. Each person's problem is our problem. So in high school, by the time I got to high school, my mother was suffering from postpartum depression. At that point, my siblings were born, my brother and sister, Victor and Lola. And the responsibility of the home fell on me because the relationship between my dad and my mom deteriorated. And he was actually on his way out at that point. And so when he left, it was just myself, my siblings, and my mom, who was ill. And to compound her postpartum depression, she turned to alcohol. So that made it so much more difficult, you know? Yeah, that's, I think I was in high school. That's my little sister right there, Veronica. You know, a lot of the pictures I have is by accident. I don't know, you know, I think some of them were, the mother of my daughter had them. But most of my family pictures were lost when I got incarcerated. I'll get into it later on. But yeah. And in high school, I actually enjoyed, aside from sports, I'm really into theater, you know. So I was in a student of the month, and I was in the theater group. Co-op. During co-op, I actually worked at an independent theater company called Trinity Basement Theater. They were Queen and Sherburne, I believe. No. Dundas, I believe, and Sherburne. I can't remember, but right beside Sherburne Station. It was in the basement of the church, right beside Sherburne Station. And yeah, so that was me and my siblings, you know, taking care of them. Despite the hurdles I had to face, you know, I graduated high school by winning the humanitarian award. Like I said, high school started off rough, you know, misadventures, getting in trouble with the cops and with the law, quote-unquote law. So, but I figured it out. I straightened out by the time I graduated, due to the fact that the responsibility I had at home. Like I couldn't afford to just be making these mistakes because my family needed me. So shortly after high school, my girlfriend, who I've been with since the age of 16, we had a daughter. Her name is Tatiana. She was born on New Year's Day, 2001. You know, the struggles at home continued. You know, trying to look after my family. Like I didn't have the opportunity to say I want to go to college because I really needed to just work and be around my family. So those opportunities weren't given to me. You know. This was me at Disney World, I believe. The year was January 2002, and 2002 is a significant year because, you know, on August 13, 2002, there's a neighborhood that most of my friends grew up in. It's called Teasdale. It's down by Victoria Park Station. And I'd hang out there. And over time, even after high school, I'd go see my friends. One day I was there, you know, just by the basketball court there, and I got into an altercation, which resulted in a young man losing his life. And 2 weeks after that incident, I got arrested. So there I was, locked up. My mom needed me. My siblings at that point, I think they were already in children's aid care by that point. And shortly after my incarceration, by December, my mom became homeless because there was nobody there to look after her or financially take care of her. And again, I was away from my daughter, Tatiana. You know, so those are the years, you know, that I was away from her. Those are my siblings, you know, again, over the years of me being away. So this is me in the pen. In 2004, I got arrested August 27, 2002. By April 2004, I've been convicted and sentenced to serve a life sentence without a possibility of parole for 12 years. You know, and you know, you find out who your true friends are and what's important at that point. You know, I often liken it to you guys remember the book Finding Waldo? So in order to find Waldo, you cannot be in the picture. You got to take yourself out the picture. So, and you know, the gift and the curse of being in that position that I found myself in is like I took myself out of the picture and saw where I really went wrong, what I needed to correct. So, about 2.5 years into my sentence, it was hard to get a hold of my daughter. I would go months not hearing from her, calling. You know, the relationship between me and her mother obviously had ran its course. I was sharing the frustration of not being able to talk to her because she means so much to me. Like, I took the onus of looking after my brother and sister when they needed me. Why wouldn't, like, of course I'm going to look after my own child. And not being able to do that was devastating to me. And furthermore was that I couldn't even talk to her. So she was like maybe three at this point. She was 1.5 years when I got incarcerated. So she was probably around three. So I was sharing this frustration with a friend of mine, and he stated that, you know, you should start writing her. And I wasn't too keen on it. So like I said, somebody's got to read the letters to her, right? I didn't know if her mother would do that. But, you know, I did. I started writing the letters. And the first letter I wrote to her was December 2005. She's a New Year's baby, like I said. So the first letter was consisted of me telling her of the day she was born. So every month, and that first letter was dated the 27th, so every month after that, I'll send her a letter on the 27th. So that's why the name of the book is called 27th Letters. So while I was incarcerated, there's various things that I got involved with. Again, the letters were just part of it because I really needed to share this information, what I've learned in my short life at that point. And I don't have the opportunity as a regular parent to be around her, so I had to leave something, and I didn't know what the future held for me. So along with those letters, this is a plaque, a 3-frame plaque that's attached. I remember one of the letters I had gotten from her, she said she likes pandas. So there was a picture of a panda at the top, and this poem that I wrote is in the middle, or at the bottom, I can't remember. And somebody drew a picture of her. Trying to press this. There. So that was somebody, art guy. So much talent in oh my God, the talent in prison is disgusting. Like, disgusting. I'm serious. There's a lot of, like, I meet guys and I'm like, buddy, what are you doing here? Like, do you know what you're worth right now? It's crazy. It's crazy, you know? And that's one of the guys, that kind of helped me throughout the time. His name is John McLeod. And the guy on the far left was the one that suggested I write my daughter. My dad, my sister, my brother would come see me periodically. They would have this thing called socials, and that's one of the socials there. Before I go there, trying to go back. Go back one more. So 2010, actually October 2009, after 5 years of being in prison, my appeal was heard, and waited a few months. By January 2010, I heard I won my appeal. Basically, an appeal is basically they'll overturn your conviction, and you basically go back before the courts. So this was after 7.5 years altogether of being incarcerated. And of course, to save taxpayers' money, and for me not even taking a chance with the system again, I pled to a lesser charge, which they gladly offered. And I got out, time served. But on my way out, I got to meet a couple of young kids who were at the beginning of their journey. This was in the Don jail, because I had to go back to the city jail and go before the courts again. So I was in the Don jail for like 3 months, and those months were very pivotal to part of the reason why I'm here today, because I got to see these young children who, just like myself, at one point at the beginning of this journey. The guy with the sunglasses, his name is Lamar Skeet Amo. He actually came up to me one day in the Don jail. Like, they called me Natty because of my locks. I was like, Natty, can I talk to you? It was early in the morning. He goes, can I talk to you? I go, what's up? And he's like, he got a letter from his father. His father lives in the States, and his father's trying to connect with him, and he's confused because he's like, I'm looking at life right now, and this is the first time you're contacting me. So it was really a sad situation, like a lot of the male problems in general stems from family, And the other gentleman right there is Damien St. Clair. He's also serving a life sentence, So I became a mentor to these guys, as I was transitioning out. And this is 2 days after I got out, me and my daughter. That was a great moment for me. Took advantage of it. So this picture, I'm going to take a moment to tell you a story. So I told you my mom was homeless. So throughout the years of me being incarcerated, I didn't know where she was. I came out, about a year after I came out, I decided to start looking for her. It was just really overwhelming. So myself and my siblings started looking for her. We went to the police, and the police kind of gave us a hint on something what led us to 411.ca. So we put a name of 411.ca. We got an address. We got a number and an address. Went to the address. It was an apartment building. We didn't have a door number, so we tried to go to the super's office, but they were closed. So the next day we went again, and I called. The next day we went again. Went to the super's office, explained to them, and they were like, we can't really tell you, but because of the story of itself was so overwhelming, the person just wrote on a piece of paper, passed it to me. So we got a door number. So just to make sure it was the right one, I called the number because I could hear the phone ring. I haven't seen my mom since 2002. This was, 2011. So, and it was heart-wrenching for me while I was locked up, because there were times where I would watch the news and you hear a story of a woman being found somewhere, and sometimes I'm like, it's just, it's crazy. So I got their number. We knocked on the door. She wasn't home. Went back downstairs. We saw the super who cleans the building. So I was describing her to my mom, who my mom was. She's like, yeah. So it was myself, my Empress, and my brother there in that lobby. And as we're talking to her, my mom walks in. Yeah. And that's the picture of us embracing after all those years. It was crazy that my Empress, everyone was crying. She had the wherewithal to take pictures. It was crazy. So you see that bag in her hand? So we went upstairs, and she's like, if you notice, when I migrated here, they told my parents in order to go to a Catholic school, I had to get a baptismal name. So I actually chose the name Anthony. So for years, I went by the name Anthony and forfeited my birth name, which is Lanre, which is given to my grandmother. I recently went back to it, just to honor my grandmother. But so in that bag, you know those keychains with people's names on it. So she was just coming from the mall, that moment, and she goes in the bag and she's like, "Look what I bought today," and she pulled out a keychain with my name on it. It's crazy. It's crazy. She's doing well now, When I came out, it was hard to find my place. Like, I volunteered with a couple of nonprofit organizations. I was thankful for the time there, and I was able to go to a couple of group homes and work with youths and whatnot, volunteering. But something was, and I also tried to go to George Brown to become a child youth worker. But funny thing happened is that George Brown sent back my application and said, something is wrong with your SIN. I'm like, okay. I went to the SIN office, and the SIN people at the SIN office, Social Insurance Office, they said, oh, your SIN got deactivated because it was inactive for a period of longer than 5 years. I've spoken to many other people who've been incarcerated even longer than me. They said they never heard of that, so it's kind of weird that that happened to me. So because I didn't have my IDs, which were lost, all these things were lost, it took me years to just really say I have my SIN active again. So I had to figure out a way to, learn stuff and just try to evolve, to get with the times. And like I said, I was into theater, so I picked up media. I started mentoring. I got a couple of mentors who taught me the ins and outs of editing, film photography, and so on and so forth. So this is me just on set there. I told you I met my Empress, who was there that day when I reunited with my mom. We had a son in 2013? Yeah, 2013. We had a son, Morocco. And that's one of my mentors, and that was a gig for Olivia Chow. No babysitter, my Empress is working. I had to bring him on set with me. That's how determined I am to get to where I need to go, Leading up to, after I came out, I realized, the letters that I wrote my daughter were very valuable, and I feel like I needed to share them with the world. So I decided to turn them into a book. And leading up to me publishing the book, I had a couple of fundraisers to help, and Socrates was the headliner. He's a major guy in Canadian hip hop, so I got him to headline it. Just do some fundraiser. There he is. One of the organizations that I've connected with right away was FEET. I'm pretty sure some of you guys know Jessica and Derek. I know Tanya does. Hi, Tanya. So I know Tanya because of them. So I connected with FEET. I love what they do, and I'm all for them. I'm all for them. I remember clearly after I got convicted, thinking to myself, I wish I had somebody, some organization, somebody who could talk to the mother of my daughter and just kind of explain how things are for her, what would be. And it's ironic, like they started shortly after, and they've been great supporters of everything I do. So they came to my event and spoke. And Jessica does this walk every year to Ottawa. I don't know if you guys are aware. She walks from Toronto to Ottawa just to raise awareness. And shortly after, I started 1206 Studio. After I started doing I got comfortable with the whole film and photography thing. I started 1206 Studio. Funny story here. My Empress is from Manitoba, so we went back home to visit her family, and she lives in rural Manitoba. So we went to a powwow. I'm very big on indigenous stuff. So went to a powwow, and this was on my screensaver for years afterwards. And it wasn't till a while ago, a couple of years ago, that it dawned on me. So this kid just comes up to me and started talking to me. There's thousands of people there. He just, struck up a conversation. He said he wanted to take a picture with me, so I did. I took a picture with him too. So his number, right there, if you can see, it says 1206. So for years, it never dawned on me, but out of the thousands of people that was there that day, there was a guy with the number 1206, which is the name of the studio that I run, 1206 Studio. It was really crazy. This was on Prisoners Justice Day. Feet invited me to come out and stuff. Again, leading up to me publishing my book. So a few things. I still volunteer. I volunteer with the Good Shepherd Refuge. I think that's John Tory in the line there. And myself and my daughter go, and my Empress, well, maybe not so much now because of our boys, but me and my daughter go often to volunteer. Again, I had another event, again, Derek and Jessica came, leading up to me. Then I had another boy, Masai. He's 2 years old. My high school, Neil McNeil, actually my cameraman, Nick right here, he went to Neil, but he went years after me. So after I came out, there's a couple of teachers that I still know there, and I went to go talk to them, and they had a media lab there, and he said, you should go hang out and then talk to the youths, and Nick was one of the people I connected with because of the love for media, film and photography. But every so often I go back and they have reunions and so on and so forth. This lady is Mrs. Smith. She was the secretary when I was in high school. I remember, often, based on just how my life was during high school, I'd be late. So she got used to seeing me coming in late. And after a while, she would have muffins for me, these big muffins. She's like, muffin boy, she used to call me and whatnot. So years later, after I seen her at the reunion, I told her what happened to me, and I told her I remember her generosity, just her kindness was just giving. I remember those days while I was incarcerated, and she looked at me and she said, she obviously knew something about what was gonna happen, how life was, and she said, those were the reasons why I did it, because I know there's going to be times where you're going to need those type of memories, you're going to need those things, and it was a very moving woman. Fidelis in Adios, which that's the slogan for our school, which is faith in hard times. So my daughter graduated elementary school. She's in high school now. I was able to be there. I'm very grateful for that. I missed her first day of school, and shortly after, a couple of years ago, I published my book, 27th Letter, snapped. And also recently, my daughter, I started her, I helped her start an event organization company called KUO Events. It's for teens, really. So we do a lot of teenage parties and whatnot, day parties anyways, nothing at nighttime. So just to help her get a better, no, nothing, no, thank you. I don't need a headache. So day parties, so one of the templates we used was her birthday party. That was her, big girl now. And I also started, I'm about to launch 5 Principles Cuisine, which is a meal prep catering service that's vegan, that I think we need it. We talk about health as well. We need to start making these better choices as far as eating, our eating habits, some of the items there. With 5 Principles and KUO, we were able to help organize KIP Awareness Day for feet, which is a couple of weeks ago. There's my family now. My parents, they're not together. This is just a moment in time. That's my sister. My brother's not there at that moment when we took pictures.